I hope every one of you has heard these stories, and I mean that in the deepest, most human sense. I mean, of course, we've now heard the elements of these narratives, but I hope you've heard them in a way that you can internalize them and feel them as yours, feel them as the stories of your own family, and feel them as a story that you cannot rest unless you are every waking moment retelling these stories. We're in a remarkable moment right now. I mean, this week, this day, the fact that yesterday this was the cover of Time magazine with our friend Jose Antonio Vargas and dreamers stepping forward and stepping out. We are in a remarkable moment right now, and I think the thing that our award winners remind us, as I said at the very beginning, is the power of the voice of ordinary people, number one. That each one of our award winners is somebody who, as Antonella was describing, just a good person in terrible circumstances who decided to do something, right? That there was nobody had anointed you a hero before, nobody had said your job requires you to be a hero. You just decided to step forward as an ordinary person and be the best kind of citizen you possibly could be. The second thing that I think we take away from all these stories, because even though there is tragedy and exploitation and victimization in every one of these stories, is that this is all about agency, not victimhood. This is about people having power. And I think that's something that's so important for us to remember right now, because in this movement right now that we are part of to help give voice and agency to immigrants of all kinds in the United States, it is about power. And people on this stage may seem, because of their stories, to be powerless and therefore exploited or exploitable or abused in some way, but they are full of power. We are full of power. And we have the power to change not only the story and the conversation, we have the power to change the way that the President of the United States thinks and acts and talks. There's a third theme that I want to call out from these stories as well, and that is the ways in which every one of these stories is about collaboration across the usual lines, across generational lines, across regional lines, across lines of profession, across lines of status, whatever it may be. And building coalitions in ways that cross those lines is so, so powerful. The fourth point, which Saket was making earlier when we were huddling before we came on stage, is that while each one of these award winners and their champions are embodiments of incredible moral and physical courage, incredible courage, what they are also embodiments of is a very savvy sense of strategy. Strategy matters. Figuring out how you move the system, how you find, as Xiomara and her allies had to, the people in the system who can be your friends. Whether it's in Antonella's case, figuring out how to fight the system and recognize that you have standing in the system even if people within it are criticizing you. In the case of Abi and Saket, recognizing all the ways that in 20 minutes at 4:45 a.m. you can strategize and create a sense of power so that it's not just about individual randomized acts of courage, it's about collective strategy and all of us webbing together in a single mind with a single sensibility about how we're going to push things and leverage things. And this brings me to the final point here, which I think it's fitting to note, and we would have noted even if the president hadn't spoken today, and that is to remember that in our democracy, in this country, our elected leaders are usually lagging indicators, not leading indicators of change. Our leaders follow us. Our leaders will go where we push them. Our leaders will act the way we tell them to act. And so what we have next here, this has been a great day. The president's announcement is leaving everybody on a high as you finish your time here in Portland. But what we have next, as our three dreamers said earlier, is the next leg of this marathon. What we have next is the next long chapter for us to be authors of. And that requires us to have not only a sense of power together, a sense of strategy together, but to be determined together to figure out how to connect the dots between stories like these and a way to keep on pushing our leaders, to push our leaders so that they not only understand the intellectual abstract case for doing what we're doing, they understand the emotional case. That when they're talking about these changes, they're seeing Xiomara, they're seeing Abi, they're hearing Antonella's voice, and they're recognizing we cannot turn our backs on our fellow Americans. That's what this is about. And I want to just say, on the backs of your posters that I think are on the tables here, are opportunities for you to continue your engagement and involvement here, and to share your stories. Can someone hand me one of those posters? I want to hold that up. And the profiles of our winners. For any of you who've been part of other events, Freedom from Fear Award events, you know this is a remarkable group of people. And to use the language that I use of guiding lights, these are guiding lights, but every one of us is now called. Every one of us is now called to lead. Every one of us is now called to recognize that there will be little moments. One might come in 20 minutes. One might come in 2 weeks or 2 months for us to decide, are we going to choose path A or path B? Are we going to choose to be complacent and keep our head down? Or are we going to, even at some personal cost, are we going to choose the path of courage? And I just want to thank Monona, Taryn, Pramila, Jerry, the entire team of people who have pulled us all together here, and thank all of you as advocates, funders, champions, dreamers, and Americans for what we've done to come together thus far and what we still are going to do together. Thanks. Please join me in thanking all of our panelists and all of our award winners, and go forth and be American. Thank you.